Hello and welcome back to another DE Hammer video. Today's video started off with me doing research on how to find how far down you have to go to get a certain width in a vCARVE. And I'm doing that for the halftone generator I've been working on, and this is a new aspect of it. So got really involved in that, was going to try to share all the math and everything there with you all, but didn't want to bore you, so I condensed that down into about a 5-minute section, just kind of going over the different formulas, what you need to do to your bit to get for these formulas to work, and all that fun jazz. So after that, we're going to look at the Open Office calculator that you can just plug in your numbers and get the numbers you need so you can move on with your day. After that, we're going to look at Carbide Create and do a few test vcarves in there, look at advanced vcarves, and then to finish it out, just going to show you how to separate your advanced vcarve G code into 2 separate codes if you already don't know how to do that. Whew! A lot in there, and then we'll finish off where all this led me to and the different test pieces I did. You can see a few of them sitting right there. So remember, if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe and bell button, and let's get into this video. Alright, so what is this all good for? Well, first of all, you'll be able to find the angle of your bit. 2, how far down you have to go to create a certain width. 3, better understanding of vCARVE. And 4, understanding what is going on in your G code. What is vCARVE? Well, it's depth and angle equal width. So depending upon how far you are down, and the angle of your bit is going to give you your width. And so what you're going to see here is with a low angle bit like this 30 degree, you're going to get a deep and narrow vCARVE or V-cut in your stock material. Now, with a large angle, say a 90 degree, you're going to get a shallow and wide cut. Now, depending how far this goes down, is going to determine how wide your cut is. And now let's just talk about angles. And when we're talking about angles, we are talking about the point. We want the angle of the point. So whether it's 30, 60, 90, 120 degrees, we want that angle of the tip, just like you see with all these. Next, we are going to need to create a right triangle with our bits information. So if we had a 13 millimeter wide 90 degree bit, we need half of that to create a right triangle, and it would be 6.5 millimeters. And we also need to half the angle as well, so that becomes 45. Now this is important for the next steps ahead. The formula, the fun part, yes. Now, this is why we need to create a right triangle. For these formulas to work, you need to base it off a right triangle, so we'll be using half of the bit. So we will, at some point, to get full width or the full angle, we'll have to multiply that out, but we'll talk about that a little later. First of all, I started with the formula. The tan of the angle is equal to the width over the height. So we knew our width. We did not know our height, or h, and we knew our degree angle, TA, like so, but we didn't know what the height was. So originally, I was going to bore you with a bunch of math and cross multiply and get x by its lonesome, a lot of algebra, flipping, going back and forth on both sides of the equation for every example. But then it dawned on me, if you can do that with numbers, you can do that with letters. So we have 3 formulas we are going to be using today. The first one, TA, which is going to be our tan angle, is going to be equal to width over height. Our second formula is width equals height times the tan angle, and then height equals width over the tan angle. Let's look a little bit more into what that actually means. Hey, just everything I said when you read it out. Width and height, you find the angle. So the angle is equal to width over height. Now, why with the times 2? Well, we're only finding half our width, so we need to multiply it back out to get the full angle. So if you're using graphing calculator or you're using Excel or OpenOffice, TA is in radians and will need to be converted to degrees for an answer. So please remember that. Next, we have height and angles, find the width. And again here, we're going to need to multiply that out by 2 to get the full width of our bit. And we're not going to really talk about this one because for the most part, we're going to be measuring the width with our calipers. And third, we have the width and the angle, find the height. And this is where it really became important to me in writing G-code, is figuring out how high the Z needed to be in the bit. And this was an important part of understanding what was going on. So that was a fun one, and that is actually the one that started. So finding the height is an important one for me, and we'll talk a little bit more as well. All right, and I wasn't going to leave you high and dry. Wasn't going to make you figure it out. Go find your old TI graphing calculators and start punching away at numbers. No, wrote an OpenOffice here. If you do save this as Excel and import into Excel, you may need to change up some of these formulas so it works within there. First one you see here we have is the finding angle. So this is the formula where we input the width in height to find the angle we're looking for, or the degree. And for the 30-degree bit, we have a width of 3 and a height of 5.6 millimeters. Again, all this is in millimeters when it's dealt with width and height, and degrees are actual degrees. The tan is in radians. And if you're not following along with any of that, that's fine. All you have to do is input numbers here and here. And you can do it for finding an angle, finding a height, and finding a width. So depending upon which info you have, you can go through and calculate what you need. Again, basically what most people will be using this for is to find that odd angle of that single bit they have laying around. They don't have a bunch of others that they can compare it to find out the angle. You can at least get the width and the height of the bit, and then that's going to give you your degree. Remember, everyone, this is a tool. So I just put in the nominal width for both the bits I was using, did a quick measure on the height, and that's how I got to the degrees shown here. But let's go in real quick. Let's remeasure, and I get 3.16, and the height 5.4. That's all in millimeters again. So my degree comes out to 32.62 degrees. For all intensive purposes, due to manufacturing tolerances or not getting just the right measurement with the calipers, I feel good just putting in 30 degrees even with that. This is a tool. It's not to get the exact, precise, and there will be some form of variation. For 90-degree bit, get 12.89, and for the height, did a good job, 6.5. Comes out to 89.51 degrees. So I would be happy with putting 90 degrees in there. And down below here, in the inputs, are C5 and C6, and so I just walked through what's going on and how we get to our answers and what's all calculating to get there. So if you want to take a little bit deeper look into here, feel free, play around, look inside the formula, see what goes where. So let's look at finding the width real quick. All right, with finding the width, we are looking for the width it will be while our vbit is in the stock material. So if we had our vbit all the way down in our stock material, all 5.6 millimeters, the largest width it would give me is 3. Now let's say the height was just 1 millimeter in. It would only give me a width of 0.5 millimeters. Okay, so that's where this can be helpful when you're designing and seeing when you're designing, so you can get a good judgment of width and depth and what you're going to get. Remember, 0.5 millimeters is not a lot. I just did it on this last one. Didn't turn out the best. Just depending on your stock material and what you're actually doing, you could get different results. Hey, 0.5 millimeter might be exactly what you need. If you're trying to do a lot of larger stuff, let's look at a 90-degree bit. So to get the full 13 millimeters width out of this bit, we only have to go down 6.5 millimeters. Let's put in 3.25, half. So that drops us down. Our width is 6.5 millimeters. Let's drop that down to 1 height. And our width is 2 millimeters. Let's put this back up to 3. This would give us just under 2 millimeters, but this would give us a much deeper cut. Almost, it's 3 times the depth as the 90-degree is set. I know this seems like a lot of extra work to do stuff, but if you have this up while you're designing, it's just a quick way to check and make quick calculations so you can decide, hey, how big of an offset do I really want? Do I want a smaller width, or do I want a bigger width with a shallower depth? So that just kind of helps you make those decisions while you're designing. And then again, we can also find the height. For right now, in what you're doing, it's not going to be that big of a deal unless you start trying to write G-code and do all that, and you're trying to figure out how far to get your Z down into the material. Don't really think you're going to need this one, but it's there if you want to play around with it. Here, I've set up a quick little test piece just to kind of go through and show you some of the different options you have. Let's go here, enable this first group. And we have VCARE select for this first one. And here, let's go ahead and disable the rest of these. And let's just see what it's going to do for us. Woohoo! It gave us that big hole right there. Yep. That's because we gave vCarve a enclosed vector, but we haven't given it any width. So let's disable that one. Let's enable there. Now let's show this simulation. Right now we have these 2 circles selected with a 90-degree vbit. And let's show the simulation. And that's more like it. We have a circle. And you can see it's slanted here at the edges. So that's a pretty simple vCarve right there. But let's move on to something a little bit more tricky. So we're going to disable that, enable this one, and we have the 30-degree bit because we got some small spaces in there that we want to get in. And we're just doing normal vCarve. So let's see how that turns out. And it's horrible. I mean, unless that's the look we were going for, I doubt it. Going for more of a tree look. So we're going to know the max depth of 5 and the width of 3. So let's bring that over here. We want to find the width. So we know the height will be 5. So the width would be 2.6 millimeters. That's the widest it can go. And if we're looking here, each one of these is, let's see, I believe they're 5, so 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. Yeah. So if we just look from here to here, this distance here is only 5 millimeters. So it's only going to give us 2.6 millimeters width with using a simple vcarve. So yeah, that is not what we want. Let's hide that back, disable that one. Now let's enable. And we still have our funky Christmas looking tree thing here, but we have the advanced vcarve going on. And we have the tool, the 1/8 default bit with a 30-degree vbit. If we were to save this as G-code right now by itself, you would put all of that into one G-code. We'll talk a little bit later about how to split those out into 2 separate if you so desire. And then we have our max depth here. And let's give it a look at. And there's our funky looking tree. But it is much closer in design to what is actually drawn out there. And so with that bit, it comes in here, let's show, and it hogs out all of this, and then it comes around the outside here and here with the V-bit. So it hogs out all this material in between for you. And that's really all Advanced Vcarve is using 2 bits. All right. Now here's just the fun one here. Let's enable it, and this one is with a 90-degree. Let's show this. Oh, these are both 90 degrees right here bit. And we get that cool effect there. Now, the reason that middle is not showing, let's hide simulation. Let's go to design, and if I click here, hey, broken apart like that. And so that's why it's not cutting in there. There is nothing to define a width in that space, so it leaves it as it is and only cuts those selected parts. In my original, as you can see here, so we'll make 2 of these just to explain. We got that in there. It's all right. Come and bring this down. So I'm going to click here, shift, and hold this one. That gave me that. Now I'm going to click here, here, and hit that BOLEAN. And now I have interlocking parts. And to get them to snap back together so perfectly, let's find the corner. Put it to a corner. And now we have the exact same shape as that. But let's undo. And then let's look at a fancy font. Go ahead and disable, enable. And right now we have a 90-degree V-bit. So but we only have it going down 1 millimeter. So let's see how that looks. Not too shabby. I think it follows the font pretty well. It may be a little too shallow and not as wide as I'd like it. So let's bump that up to, let's say 2.5. Let's see if that helps any. And no, it does not. And why? Let's come get the line tool. We can measure our width here. Let's see, 92, 94, about just over 2 millimeters in width. So it's not helping us out much in going there. Oh, let's just hit done. Delete. But we could make this a little bit bigger. One of the things you'll notice is on that vCarve, it's going to come deeper here. And then it's going to start raising as it comes in through here. And it'll be a shallower cut in these smaller parts than right here. Let's see if we can get a good look at that in the... You can see how that's deeper and it comes up and it gets shallower, and the width gets smaller, and then as it gets deeper, again, getting bigger, and then when it's coming and curving up here, so to give it that little tip. Now let's take a look at separating the advanced G code into two separate G codes. So I created a G code of this Klingon badge and the dagger, and I'm doing a advanced vcarve for this area right here. It's gonna hog out all the center here and then do a 30-degree vbit around the edges. And here is my G code for that advanced vcarve. What I'm going to do here is we can see it starts off as normal. But first we're going to do Control F. And it should automatically, if we highlighted that advanced, pull it into the Find What. Now let's find Next. There we go. I'm going to hit Cancel real quick. This is the Z raising up to 3. And then typically we would want to try some tool change or something. What we're going to do is start highlighting it, scroll down, hold down Shift, grab all of that, Control C, and then Control V. Click back here, hit Delete. And we're going to add an X 0.00, Y 0.00 to send it home so we can recenter out our next bit, M05, and M02. Same as over here. Now, let's go back to here, but we're going to add the X 0.00 and Y 0.00, and it's just out of habit. That's my last cut, but I always put it there because I never want to forget it. Now let's scroll back up here, and as we can see, we have this G90, G21. Let's go and ahead and add it here. And now we have our two different bits. The first one that's going to happen is the regular mill, where it's just going to hog out all that center. So we could go ahead, save as, and we can call this 3mm hog out dot NC. And this is all for a Gerbil board, so that's why we're doing it this way. We'll hit save, and then we can save as 30-degree vcarve .nc. There we go. And now we have two different files for our advanced vcarve. And that was the rabbit hole I started falling down once I started doing research into the width and angle and height of bits and depths and all that fun stuff. I kind of needed a break, so got into Illustrator and started a new way of drawing. And that was fun, and I think it really lent itself to a vcarve. And so I wanted to test that out. But first, I had to do a simple vcarve like this one here. The Star Trek badge unit right there was vcarved. This was done with a 90-degree, and then this was just pocketed out no advanced vcarve. Everything was fine on this one with the vcarve. I had more issues with the paint, but that's a different story, different video. Let's look at the next piece I did, which was this. And this is a mix of a regular vcarve. This one came out very well. This one, not so much. And this is an advanced vcarve, at least in here. But this is all done with a 30-degree vbit. And again, not bad. Had some issues on this side. Not so much this side. Got some really good detail in there. Let's see. It's not the best, but it is better than the other side. But still, another good personal piece. Which then got me into Illustrator and working on this Mr. Jean-Luc Picard. And it's too complicated just to jump to the end here. I needed to connect some of these areas. I had a lot of issues with this part what was being carved out, just getting some really bad fuzzies there. I tried cleaning up as best as I could, but it only happened down here. I didn't really have that issue up here. Everything cleaned up real nice with the letters. This is an advanced vcarve with a 30-degree bit. Everything is 30 degrees on this. And it did a pretty good job on the eyes. There are some good parts, but I believe it's also the design was flawed. So, went back to the drawing board. And here we go. So, on this one, much better. One, the color is right. This white with the black, the way, you know, the vcarve being painted black really makes a difference. So I'm going to keep playing around with color, see how that works and what I like, but I really like this white. Even though I had issues with the paint on this as well, me and this PVC board and paint, going to get it down though. Did have to end up sanding it because I had a bad reaction with the clear coat. And you can see here, let's get in real close. You can see how the spray paint or the paint is bleeding out around some of those edges. But was able to save it. At least it wasn't a waste and really liked it. I combined, you can see compared to this one, how you have this raised right here. Those are all connected into one piece instead of having two separate pieces. So overall, really like this. Going to keep messing around, practicing, and trying out new designs. And we'll see where that goes. And thank you everyone for watching. Remember, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe and like button and keep making stuff.